New York City has always felt like a place where secrets don't ever really die. They bounce off the skyscrapers, slide down into dark alleys, and hang around in the subway cars like old cigarette smoke that just won't clear out. It's the perfect breeding ground for betrayal. It thrives here in the shadows. And on a Friday night right before Christmas 2025, I stumbled onto one that damn near tore my entire life apart. It all started with one single text message. Not on my phone, on my wife's. The screen lit up while she was in the bedroom grabbing her purse. "Can you get here earlier? I can't wait to see you again." Those words hit me like a freight train straight to the chest. Sarah had left her phone unlocked on the kitchen counter, totally careless. We'd been married 10 years. 10 years of laughs, fights, late-night talks, dreaming about the future, and what I truly believed was unbreakable trust. But in that one moment, it all shattered like cheap glass hitting the floor. My heart started pounding so loud I could hear it thumping in my ears. I scrolled up, telling myself it had to be nothing, that I was overreacting. The sender was saved as Mike, work. Yeah, sure, work. The farther I read, the worse it got. Mentions of late-night hotel rooms, private jokes, messages that crossed every line coworkers should have. It was raw and intimate, the kind of stuff that makes your stomach turn when it's coming from the woman you share a bed with every night. Things like him describing how he loved the way her skin felt under his hands in that dimly lit suite, or her telling him she couldn't stop thinking about his mouth on her neck. Then came the final gut punch, a confirmation they were meeting that very evening at the Hudson Lounge in Midtown. Sarah walked back into the kitchen, smiling that warm, familiar smile, gave me a quick kiss on the cheek like she always did, grabbed her keys, and said, "Heading out for dinner with some folks from the office. Don't wait up, okay, Jake?" "Sure," I replied, keeping my voice steady and normal. The door clicked shut behind her, and I just slumped into a chair at the table, staring at her phone screen like it was a live grenade. Time seemed to freeze. I thought about everything we'd built together, our house in Brooklyn, the trips we'd taken, the plans we'd made that never quite panned out, all the promises we'd whispered to each other. And here she was, sneaking off to a hotel bar with some guy while I sat at home like a complete fool. I could have called her right then, yelled, demanded answers. But that would have been too easy, too quick. She'd cry, make excuses, twist things around, maybe even turn it back on me somehow. No. I wanted her to feel the exact same knife twist in her back that she just jammed into mine. That's when the idea started taking shape in my head. First step, find out who this Mike really was. A quick dive into social media, and there he was, Michael Harrison, big-time corporate lawyer, always posting pictures of fancy dinners, yachts, private jets. And sure enough, in one shot from a company holiday party last year, Sarah was standing right next to him, laughing, his arm almost around her waist. My stomach knotted up tight. But then I spotted the woman on his other side, petite, sleek dark hair, sharp jawline, polished smile that screamed Upper East Side elite. Her arm was looped through his like she owned the place. Emily Harrison. His wife. For a second I hesitated. Dragging another innocent person into this mess felt cruel. But the more I thought about it, the fairer it seemed. Emily deserved to know what her husband was up to just as much as I did. So the next morning, I parked outside their luxury high-rise on the Upper East Side and waited. The building was a fortress of glass and steel, the kind where rich lives play out behind tinted windows. When Emily stepped out in a perfectly tailored trench coat, designer bag over her shoulder, heels clicking sharp on the sidewalk, I got out and walked straight up to her. "Excuse me, Emily Harrison?" She stopped, gave me that quick, cautious once-over you learn living in this city. "Yes? Do I know you?" "No, but we've got something pretty major in common." I kept my voice low and even. "Our spouses." Her brow furrowed. "I'm sorry, I don't follow. Your husband Mike and my wife Sarah." I held up my phone, the worst messages right there on the screen. "We need to talk." The color drained from her face so fast I thought she might hit the pavement. She gripped her bag strap tight, read a few lines, and whispered, "You're certain this is real?" 100%. She stared at the screen a little longer, then something flipped in her eyes, shock turned to cold, hard resolve. You got a plan? She asked. I hadn't expected that. I figured tears or anger. Instead, she looked ready for war. And right then I knew I'd just found the perfect partner in this whole nightmare. Yeah, I said, the pieces clicking together faster now. And it definitely includes you. We grabbed coffees at a quiet little spot just around the corner from her building and spent the next hour laying everything out on the table. Every screenshot, every heartbreaking detail, every hotel receipt I'd managed to pull from Sarah's deleted emails. Emily listened without interrupting much, her face getting tighter with every message she read. By the time our cups were empty, the shock had burned off completely, and what was left was pure, focused anger. We weren't just two hurt spouses anymore. We were a team with a mission. You know what the worst part is? She said, stirring the last of her latte. I actually liked your wife at that holiday party last year. She seemed sweet. Genuine. Yeah, well, turns out sweet and genuine don't always go together, I muttered. Emily nodded slowly. So what's the play here, Jake? Because I'm not the type to just sit home and cry about it. That's when we started building the plan, simple on the surface, but layered enough to make sure it hurt. Step 1, catch them in the act tonight at the Hudson Lounge. Not just walk in and make a scene, though that part was coming, but do it together. Let them see both of us at the same time. Let them realize in one heartbeat that their little secret world had just imploded. That same evening, we walked into the Hudson Lounge side by side. The place was everything you'd expect from a high-end midtown hotel bar. Low amber lighting that made everyone look better than they were, the clink of expensive glasses, the faint scent of top-shelf bourbon and designer perfume hanging in the air. Soft jazz played in the background, just loud enough to cover private conversations. Emily moved through the crowd like she owned it. I followed a step behind, trying not to feel like the out-of-place husband from Brooklyn that I was. We spotted them almost immediately. They were tucked into a corner booth, lit by a single candle on the table. Sarah was wearing this tight black dress I'd never seen before, low-cut enough to turn heads, hugging her body in all the ways that used to drive me crazy when it was just for me. Her hair was down, loose waves over her shoulders, and she was leaning in close to Mike, laughing at something he'd whispered. His hand was resting high on her thigh under the table, fingers tracing slow circles on her skin like he had every right to touch her that way. She didn't pull away. In fact, she shifted closer, her hand brushing his chest for just a second, intimate, familiar, the kind of casual touch that only comes after you've been skin to skin more times than you can count. My blood went hot. Emily stopped walking for a half second, her lips pressing into a thin, hard line. Look at them, she said under her breath. Like they're the only two people in the room. I swallowed the rage building in my throat. Time to remind them they're not. We walked straight over. No hesitation. The second Sarah glanced up and saw me standing there, her smile froze and then vanished completely. Her eyes went wide, mouth opening like she was trying to suck in air that suddenly wasn't there. Mike turned his head casually, still smirking from whatever he'd said, until he saw Emily right beside me. His face drained of color so fast it was almost comical. His hand jerked off Sarah's leg like he'd been burned. Emily, he started, voice cracking halfway through her name. Hello, Mike, she said, calm and cold as ice, sliding smoothly into the booth right next to him so he couldn't escape. Mind if we join you for a drink? I didn't wait for permission. I sat down hard beside Sarah, close enough that my knee brushed hers. Close enough to smell her perfume mixed with the faint trace of his cologne on her skin. It made my stomach twist. Surprised to see me, sweetheart? I asked, letting every bit of bitterness drip into the word. Sarah's hands immediately went to the hem of her dress, tugging it down nervously. Jake! I thought you were staying home tonight. Yeah, I was, I said, voice low and even. But then I got this funny feeling I was missing out on something special. And look, turns out I was right. Mike cleared his throat, trying to pull together some of that big-shot lawyer confidence. Jake, man, this isn't what it looks. Save it, Emily cut in, her tone sharp enough to slice glass. "We've both seen the messages. The hotel receipts. The little love notes about how much you miss each other's bodies. So let's not insult anyone's intelligence with lies right now." A few heads at nearby tables started turning our way. The low hum of conversation dipped just a little. Sarah's face was turning red, her eyes darting around like she was looking for an escape route that didn't exist. She shifted away from me in the booth, pressing herself closer to the wall. "Jake, please," she whispered, voice trembling. "Can we not do this here? People are starting to stare." I leaned in closer, keeping my voice just loud enough for the four of us. "Why not? You didn't seem to mind being here with him. Didn't mind his hand up your dress 5 minutes ago. Didn't mind laughing and touching him like you used to touch me." Her eyes filled up fast, but I wasn't buying it. Not tonight. Mike tried again, turning to Emily with that practiced charming smile he probably used in courtrooms. Honey, I can explain everything if we just—" "Oh, I'm sure you can," she interrupted, her smile thin and dangerous. "You're always so good with words, Mike. It's the actions I've got a problem with. Like booking hotel rooms on our credit card. Or telling her how much better she feels than I do." The color that had come back to his face drained away again. A couple at the next table openly stared now. Someone whispered. Sarah looked like she wanted the floor to swallow her whole. Emily leaned back, crossing her arms. "It's funny, isn't it? The two of you sneaking around, thinking you're so clever. Did it ever cross your minds that secrets like this don't stay buried in a city like New York?" Mike's jaw tightened. "If you want to talk about this, we can do it privately." "No," Emily said, her voice carrying just enough to draw a few more glances. "Privacy is something you gave up the minute you decided to bring your affair to a public place. So go ahead, Mike. Tell us all how this started. We're dying to hear it." The silence that followed was thick and suffocating. Sarah's hands were shaking now. Mike opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. No words came out. For the first time, the great Michael Harrison was completely speechless. Emily let it hang there for a long beat, then gave a slow, mocking clap. "Well, isn't this something? The big-shot lawyer with nothing to say. I should record this moment." A couple of quiet chuckles drifted over from nearby tables. Mike's face burned red. Sarah looked like she was on the verge of tears. I figured we'd made our point for tonight. The public humiliation was just the appetizer. This was only the beginning. Sarah finally muttered, "I think we should go," reaching for her purse with shaky fingers. But I wasn't ready to let them run just yet. I blocked her path with my arm casually draped along the back of the booth. "Leaving already? You two looked so comfortable a few minutes ago. What's the rush?" Mike stood up abruptly, chair scraping loud against the floor. "This is ridiculous. Emily, let's go." She didn't budge. Just looked up at him with that cold stare. "No, Mike. You can go. I'm staying right here." He hesitated, glancing at Sarah, at me, at the growing number of eyes on us. Then, without another word, he turned and walked out, fast, shoulders stiff, not looking back. Sarah tried to follow, but I shifted just enough to keep her pinned for another few seconds. She shot me a desperate, pleading look, but I didn't move. Finally she slipped past me, hurrying after him, whispers trailing behind them like smoke. Emily and I stayed in the booth a little longer, watching the doors swing shut behind them. The adrenaline was still pumping hard, but underneath it was something else, satisfaction. Cold, sharp satisfaction. We'd drawn first blood. But we both knew this wasn't over. Not even close. After Sarah and Mike bolted from the Hudson Lounge, Emily and I didn't rush out. We stayed in that booth a little longer, ordered a couple of whiskeys neat, and just let the adrenaline settle. The bar had mostly gone back to its usual murmur, but every now and then I caught someone glancing our way, whispering. We'd made a scene, sure, but it felt good, like we'd finally taken back some control. Emily swirled the amber liquid in her glass, staring into it. "That felt better than I thought it would." "Yeah," I said, taking a slow sip. The burn down my throat matched the fire still simmering in my chest. But that was just a warm-up. Public embarrassment stings, but it fades. We need something that sticks. She looked up at me, eyes sharp. You're thinking bigger. Way bigger. I leaned forward, keeping my voice low. Mike's a partner at his firm, right? Big reputation, high-profile clients. What happens if all this lands on his boss's desks? Texts, photos, receipts, the whole ugly package. Emily's lips curved into a slow, dangerous smile. He'd be toxic. They'd cut him loose faster than you can say conflict of interest. And Sarah, I went on, the words coming easier now. She's spent years building this perfect suburban mom image. PTA meetings, neighborhood barbecues, the whole deal. Everybody thinks she's the ideal wife. What happens when her little circle finds out she's been sleeping around behind my back? Emily raised her glass a fraction. We burn it all down. We clinked quietly and got to work right there in my living room later that night. Emily crashed on my couch after we polished off the whiskey. She lived in the same building as Mike, and going home didn't feel like an option. We spread everything out on the coffee table, printouts of messages, screenshots, even a couple of blurry photos I'd pulled from deleted files showing them checking into hotels. It looked like a detective's evidence board, and honestly, that's exactly what it was. By the time the bottle was empty, we had the next moves mapped out clear as day. First thing the next morning, Emily sent the email from her phone while I watched. She had access to Mike's work calendar and some shared accounts, perks of being married to a guy who trusted his wife a little too much. She attached everything, the most damning texts, a timeline of their meetups, even credit card charges for hotel rooms and dinners. The recipient list? Every senior partner at his firm. Sent, she said, setting her phone down like she just dropped a bomb. Which, in a way, she had. My turn. I opened my laptop and started drafting the message that would go out to Sarah's world. Subject line: some news about someone we all know. I kept it vague enough to hook them, then attached the same evidence, carefully cropped to protect Emily's privacy, but crystal clear on what Sarah and Mike had been doing. The list was long: every PTA mom, neighborhood group chat admin, mutual friends, even a couple of Sarah's coworkers I'd found through her contacts. I hovered over send for a second, feeling that last little twinge of hesitation. 10 years of marriage. But then I remembered her hand on his chest in that booth, the way she'd leaned into him like I didn't exist. I hit the button. By noon, the fallout was already rolling in. Emily's phone buzzed first, a text from a colleague of Mike's. He just got called into the corner office. Partners looked pissed. She showed me the screen, and we both let out a short, sharp laugh. Then my phone started lighting up. Missed calls from Sarah. Texts from neighbors I hadn't spoken to in months. Jake, is this for real? I'm so sorry, man. One from the PTA president. We're removing Sarah from the planning committee effective immediately. I didn't answer any of them. Let her feel the walls closing in. That evening, we met up again at my place, watching the chaos unfold like it was a movie. Sarah's voicemails piled up, first confused, then angry, then desperate. Jake, please pick up. I don't know what's going on, but people are saying things. Call me, we can fix this. Her voice cracked on the last one. I deleted them all without listening to the end. Emily got word through the grapevine that Mike had been placed on indefinite leave pending an internal review. Whispers of financial irregularities were starting to mix in with the affair rumors, stuff Emily had hinted at from things she'd overheard over the years. His name was turning radioactive in Manhattan legal circles. We were winning. Hard. But we both knew one confrontation down and a bunch of emails sent wasn't the end. They tried to crawl back, make excuses, beg for mercy. And when that happened, we needed to be ready to deliver the final blow face to face. A couple of nights later, the city was buzzing with pre-Christmas energy. Lights strung across the avenues, crowds hustling with shopping bags, sax players on corners pulling tips from tourists. Emily and I walked through Midtown after grabbing a quick dinner, plotting the last piece. We need neutral ground, she said, breath fogging in the cold air. Somewhere upscale. Somewhere Sarah can't resist showing up to because it'll look like she's still in control. I knew the perfect spot. A fancy restaurant on the Upper West Side. White tablecloths, candlelight, the kind of place Sarah always loved because it made her feel important. I made the reservation under my name for the four of us, then sent a single text to Sarah from a burner app so she couldn't block me. We need to talk. All four of us. Tomorrow night, 8 p.m., La Belle Époque. Come if you want any chance of saving what's left. She replied within minutes. I'll be there. Emily got Mike to agree the same way. Short, cold message with just enough threat to make him show. The trap was set. The next night we arrived first. Emily looked killer in a deep red dress that hugged her figure just right, elegant, but with an edge that said she wasn't here to play nice. I'd put on the one good suit I owned, the one Sarah used to say made me look handsome. We sat at the table, ordered wine, and waited. They walked in together, pale, tense, trying to hold it together. Sarah's eyes were puffy, like she'd been crying on and off for days. Mike had that tight-jawed look of a guy who knew his world was slipping away. Sarah spotted me first. Jake, she started, voice small. Mike nodded stiffly at Emily. I didn't think you'd actually go this far. Emily laughed, low and sharp, as she slid into her seat. Oh, honey. You have no idea how far we're willing to go. I leaned back, watching Sarah squirm as she sat down across from me. Relax, I said, voice calm. We're just here to talk. Clear the air. But we both knew this wasn't about clearing anything. This was about burying them. The restaurant was everything Sarah loved, soft candlelight flickering off crystal glasses, white tablecloths crisp enough to cut yourself on, quiet piano music in the background, and that hush that only comes with serious money. La Belle Époque on the Upper West Side, exclusive enough that you had to know someone to get a table this close to Christmas, but I'd dropped my name and a quiet word about family business, and they'd made room. Emily and I got there early, ordered a bottle of red, and waited. She looked incredible in that deep red dress, shoulders back, chin up, like she was heading into battle and already knew she'd win. I'd shaved, put on the charcoal suit she'd picked out when we went shopping the day before. If we're doing this, she'd said, we do it looking like we own the room. They showed up 10 minutes late, walking in together like they were trying to present a united front. But it wasn't working. Mike's tie was a little crooked, his usual slick confidence cracked around the edges. Sarah's eyes were red-rimmed under carefully applied makeup, and she kept clutching her purse like it was a life raft. They looked like two people who hadn't slept much in days, and they hadn't. Sarah spotted me first. Jake, she said softly, almost pleading, as they approached the table. Mike gave Emily a stiff nod. I didn't think you two would actually sink to something this childish. Emily laughed, low and sharp, as she stood just long enough to pull out her chair again with deliberate grace. Childish? That's rich coming from a man who's been sneaking around like a teenager for months. I stayed seated, leaning back, watching Sarah hesitate before sliding into the chair across from me. Up close, she looked smaller than I remembered. Fragile. Her perfume, the same one she'd worn for years, hit me, and for a split second it almost threw me off. Almost. Relax, I said, pouring wine into the two empty glasses. We're just here to talk. Clear the air. Mike sat down hard, jaw tight. If you've got something to say, say it. This isn't a courtroom. Emily reached into her bag and pulled out a thick folder, letting it drop onto the table with a heavy thud that made the silverware rattle. A few heads turned from nearby tables. Gladly, she said, flipping it open. Let's start with the emails, shall we? She began reading aloud, slow, clear, no rush. The messages they'd sent each other. The ones about hotel rooms with the big beds and the blackout curtains. The ones where Sarah told Mike how much she loved the way he touched her, how she felt alive again. The ones where he wrote back that he couldn't stop thinking about her body under his in the afternoons when his wife was at charity lunches. With every word, Sarah shrank a little more. Her face went from pale to flushed to pale again. Mike tried to keep that lawyer mask on, but his hands were clenched so tight around his wine glass I thought it might crack. A couple at the next table stopped talking entirely. The waiter approached once, saw the tension, and backed off fast. "You need to stop this," Sarah hissed finally, voice low and shaking. "People are staring." "Let them stare," I said, calm and cold. "You didn't care who saw when his hand was up your dress in that booth the other night. Or when you were checking into hotels on lunch breaks." Mike slammed his palm on the table, quiet, but enough to make Sarah jump. "This is harassment. You think you can just humiliate us in public and walk away clean?" Emily's smile was almost predatory. "Oh, we're not walking away, Mike. We're just getting started." She slid a second folder across the table. Printouts from his firm's internal directory, emails from partners, screenshots of the announcement that he'd been placed on indefinite leave. Then a third, texts from Sarah's so-called friends, the PDA group chat blowing up, the invitations that had suddenly dried up. Sarah's eyes filled with tears. "Jake, please, it wasn't supposed to be like this." "Then what was it supposed to be?" I asked, leaning forward. "Tell me. Explain how sneaking around behind my back for months was part of some grand plan that didn't hurt me." She opened her mouth, closed it, opened it again. Nothing came out. For the first time in 10 years, Sarah had no words. Emily turned to Mike. "And you? How's the empire holding up? I hear your clients are jumping ship faster than rats off the Titanic. Funny how quickly people lose interest when they find out their lawyer can't keep his own house in order." Mike's eyes narrowed. "You wouldn't dare push this further." "Wouldn't I?" Emily shrugged, casual as anything. "We've got more. A lot more. Financial irregularities. Clients who suddenly remember conversations they didn't like. Old partners who've been waiting for a chance to speak up." The silence that followed was heavy enough to suffocate. Sarah reached across the table, her hand trembling as she tried to touch mine. "Jake, we can fix this. I know I messed up. I was stupid, scared, lost, but I still love you. It didn't mean anything." I pulled my hand back before she could make contact. "Love? You don't get to use that word anymore, Sarah. Not after you threw it away for hotel sheets and stolen afternoons." Her tears spilled over then, running down her cheeks in dark streaks. A few diners openly watched now. The piano kept playing, soft and indifferent. Mike stood up abruptly. "We're done here." But Emily wasn't finished. She nodded toward the entrance, where the restaurant manager was hovering, looking uncomfortable. "Actually, we're not. But you two can go whenever you want. Everyone here already knows who you are now." Sarah stood too, grabbing her coat with shaking hands. She looked at me one last time, eyes pleading. "Jake." I didn't say anything. Just held her gaze until she looked away first. They left without another word, Mike storming ahead, Sarah hurrying behind him, heads down, feeling every stare in the room burn into their backs. Emily and I stayed long enough to finish the wine. The adrenaline was still buzzing, but underneath it was something quieter. Victory, yeah, but also the first real breath I'd taken in weeks. We walked out into the cold December night together, city lights glittering all around us. Neither of us spoke for a couple of blocks. Finally, Emily broke the silence. "They got the message." "Yeah," I said. "But we've got one more move." She glanced at me, eyebrow raised. "The gala?" I nodded. "New Year's Eve. Black tie charity event in Midtown. Everyone who matters in their world will be there. We make sure they show up, and we drop the hammer in front of the whole room." Emily's smile was slow and sharp. "You're ruthless when you want to be, Jake. Only when I have to be." We both knew it would be the final blow. The one that ended it for good. And we were both ready. New Year's Eve rolled around fast. Midtown Manhattan was electric that night, strings of lights everywhere, crowds bundled up against the cold, champagne flowing like water. The charity gala was at one of those grand old ballrooms in a hotel off Fifth Avenue, crystal chandeliers, gold-trimmed walls, the kind of place where tickets cost more than most people's rent and everybody who was anybody in Manhattan's legal and social circles showed up to be seen. Emily and I arrived together, arm in arm. She wore a sleek black gown that turned heads the second we walked through the doors, backless, elegant, but with just enough edge to say she wasn't here to play nice. I'd gone full tuxedo, black tie, the works. We looked like a power couple, and that was exactly the point. Let them see us strong while their worlds crumbled. We'd made sure Sarah and Mike would show. Emily dropped hints through mutual contacts that everyone important would be there and that skipping it would look like guilt. I sent Sarah one short message. Be there. Or don't, and let the rumors win. Pride did the rest. They couldn't resist trying to prove they still belong. It didn't take long to spot them near the bar. Mike in a tux that suddenly looked too expensive for the sweat I could see at his temples. Sarah in a silver dress, trying for glamorous but coming off nervous, eyes scanning the room like she was waiting for the next shoe to drop. They were smiling at people, shaking hands, but the smiles were thin, forced. Nobody was lingering to chat like they used to. Emily squeezed my arm. Show time. We walked straight over. Mike, Sarah, Emily said brightly, voice dripping with fake warmth. So good to see you both. You look like you're holding up. Sarah stiffened. Mike's jaw tightened. Jake. Emily, he said, voice flat. You've made your point. Haven't you done enough? Not quite, I replied, keeping my tone light. Tonight's special. A real celebration. Sarah frowned. Celebration of what? Of exposure, Emily said, just as the MC stepped onto the stage and tapped the microphone. Ladies and gentlemen, the host's voice boomed through the ballroom. May I have your attention for a moment? The room quieted fast. Hundreds of eyes turned toward the stage. I felt Sarah and Mike tense beside us. We'd like to take a moment to recognize a very special guest tonight, the host continued, smiling wide. Michael Harrison, please come forward. Mike froze. Sarah's hand shot out, gripping his arm. Don't, she whispered. But the crowd was already parting, murmurs rippling as people looked around for him. Spotlight hit. Every face turned. He had no choice. He walked toward the stage like a man heading to his own execution. Emily and I followed a few steps behind, calm, measured. Once we were all up there in full view, the host's smile didn't waver. Michael, your reputation certainly precedes you. But tonight, we thought we'd share a different side of your story. The massive screen behind us lit up. First slide, a hotel receipt with Mike's name and a room charged for two. Gasps. Next, screenshots of texts, Sarah telling him how much she needed him replying that he couldn't wait to feel her again. More gasps. Louder. Then photos, grainy but unmistakable. Them walking into a hotel lobby. Him kissing her neck in an elevator. Her hand on his chest in a dimly lit bar. The murmurs turned into outright whispers. That's his mistress? She's married too? Michael Harrison? No way. Sarah's face went scarlet. Tears started streaming, ruining her makeup and black streaks down her cheeks. Mike stood there pale as paper, mouth opening and closing with no sound. Emily leaned in close to him, voice low enough only we could hear. This is what happens when you think you're untouchable. I turned to Sarah. She was staring at me, eyes desperate, tears falling freely. Jake, how could you do this? How could I said quietly. How could you? The screen kept cycling through the evidence. More messages, more receipts, even a timeline of their meetups laid out clear as day. The room was buzzing now. Phones were coming out. People recording. The host cleared his throat awkwardly, trying to regain control. Well, perhaps we'll move on to the next part of the evening. But nobody was listening anymore. All eyes were on Mike and Sarah. Sarah grabbed Mike's sleeve, voice breaking. We have to get out of here. He didn't move at first, just stood there, shoulders slumping as the weight finally hit him. His career. His reputation. His marriage. All gone in one night. I leaned close to Sarah one last time. Leaving won't change anything. Everyone knows now. You might as well stay and own it. She looked at me like she didn't recognize me anymore. I made a mistake, Jake. I was weak. It didn't mean anything. I still love. Don't. I cut her off. You don't get to say that word to me ever again. Emily stepped forward beside me. And you, Mike, hope you realize what you've destroyed. It's all gone now. He finally looked at her, eyes hollow. I never meant to hurt you, he muttered. She laughed, short, bitter. Yeah. You did. Without another word, they turned and walked off the stage. The crowd parted like the Red Sea, stares and whispers following them all the way to the exit. They didn't look back. Emily and I stayed long enough to watch the doors close behind them. The room slowly started buzzing again, but the energy had shifted. We'd done it. The final blow. Later, back at my apartment, we sat on the couch with a bottle of bourbon. The high was fading, leaving something heavier behind. They deserved it, Emily said quietly. Yeah, I agreed. They did. But even as I said it, a strange emptiness crept in. Revenge tasted sweet going down, but it didn't fill the hole they'd left. Sarah's tear-streaked face on that stage lingered in my mind. Part of me hated that I still felt anything at all. Emily noticed. You're thinking about her. I didn't deny it. It's complicated. She nodded. Letting go is hard. Even when they don't deserve the space in your head. We sat in silence for a while, two people who'd been through the same fire. What now? She asked finally. Divorce, I said. Lawyer's already on it. After that, rebuild. One day at a time. And her? Not my problem anymore. Emily raised her glass. To starting over. I clinked mine against hers. To starting over. A few weeks later, the dust had settled. Mike's firm cut him loose quietly. Public statement about pursuing other opportunities. But everyone knew the truth. His name was poison in legal circles. Sarah's perfect little world had shattered too, shunned by the moms, invitations gone, whispers everywhere she went. She showed up at my door one last time, looking worn down, eyes red. Can we talk? She asked. I didn't let her in. Just stood there in the doorway. There's nothing left to say, Sarah. I know I don't deserve forgiveness, she said, voice breaking. But I need you to know it was a mistake. I lost myself. I was scared of getting older, of being invisible. But it wasn't worth losing you. You didn't lose me, I said. You threw me away. She started crying harder. I'll do anything to fix this. You can't. I've already filed. You'll hear from my lawyer. She stood there a moment longer, then turned and walked away. Door closed. Chapter over. A month after that, Emily and I met for coffee. She looked lighter, like some weight had finally lifted. How's freedom feel? She asked. Better than I expected, I said. And Sarah? Moved out. Staying with her sister in Jersey, I think. Emily nodded. I'm leaving the city. Clean slate somewhere new. Sounds smart. She reached across the table, hand resting on mine for a second. Thank you, Jake. For everything. We made a hell of a team. Yeah, I smiled. We did. Walking home that night, the city felt different. The noise, the lights, the endless rush, it didn't weigh on me anymore. I'd survived the worst betrayal I could imagine, and I'd come out the other side scarred but standing. Revenge hadn't healed me completely. But it had given me back my power. And now, for the first time in a long time, I was ready to figure out what came next. On my own terms.